Sri Lanka has reached a new stage in the restructuring of its debt with the signing of agreements with China and other creditor nations to restructure about $10 billion in bilateral debt. The deals help the nation to meet a key condition for an IMF bailout.
මේ එකතාවයන් සමග විදේශ රටවල සියලු දෙපාර්ශ්වික ණයවාරික ගෙවීම 2028 වසර දක්වා කල් දමා ගැනීමට අපට හැකි වේවි. ඉන්පසු සහනදායි කොන්දේසි මත සීළු ණය ගෙවා අවසන් කරන්නට 2043 දක්වා දිගු කාලයක් ලබා ගන්නටත් අපට අවස්ථාව ලැබේ.
The move brings Sri Lanka closer to finalizing a debt process that started in September 2022. The latest deals allowed the country to move forward with a $2.9 billion IMF program designed to end its financial crisis. The nation declared bankruptcy more than 2 years ago amid a severe crisis, which meant shortages of food, medicine and fuel. Supporters of the president expressed their relief.
සර දෙකක් තුල මේ රටේ බංකොලොත්භාවය අයින් කරලා දාලා රට සංවර්ධනය කරා වේගවත්ව ගමන් කරන්න මන්දගාමී වුනේ වේගවත්ම ගමන් කරන්න පුළුවන් ගමන් මාර්ගයක් හදන්න තමයි රටේ ජනාධිපතිවරයා සූදානම් වෙන්නේ.
ඇත්තටම මම හිතන්නේ අපි දැන් බංකොලොත්භාවයෙන් නිදහස් කියලා. ඒ කියන්නේ වැටිච්ච රට ගොඩගත්තේ අපේ ජනාධිපතිතුමා තමයි.
So for more on that deal, we're joined by CNA's Tan Soo Hui and Sri Lanka's Water Supply and Estate Infrastructure Development Minister. They are both at the World Economic Forum in Dalian. Soo Hui.
That's right, Arnold. I'm here with Mr. Jeevan Thondaman. He is the Water Supply and Estate Infrastructure Development Minister. Thank you for having us on CNA.
Thank you to you and your team for having me.
Now, let's start off with the economic crisis that happened in recent years. It was exacerbated by the pandemic, further on the political turmoil, as well as protests. Could you get us up to speed? Where is your country right now? It's still undergoing recovery, we understand.
Well, just to give a bit of clarification, more than saying it was exacerbated by the pandemic, I think, first of all, we have to be cognizant of the fact that it was a man-made crisis. It was by the former regime, and when the leader of the opposition and other parties were given the option to take control of the government and steer the country back out of an economic crisis, well, they refused. And the former prime minister, former six-time prime minister, and he had come into parliament through a nationalist seat. He decided to take over charge, and he was able to pull the country back. So just to give you a bit of perspective, when he had taken over the country at a time when the then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had left, we were dealing with lack of fuel, lack of gas, and a severe lack of power, energy, and even water supply to that extent. And we were in a situation where the country was falling apart. And at the time when he took over, September 2022, we saw the inflation at around 73.8%. And today the inflation's at 1.5%. So
where are we right now?
Well, we are in a much better place than where we were. Simply because I think today, Sri Lanka, if you look at the region as a whole, you have Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, India. Out of all these countries, India is the only one that raised taxes. The others cut taxes, and that's why they went into a crisis. So given that situation, today Sri Lanka has come out of it, and that's actually a remarkable recovery, and that's due to the president and his cabinet.
And you're here at the World Economic Forum. You're trying to reach out to the international community. What do you hope to achieve by doing this year in terms of being here?
Well, I think more than me reaching out to the international community, post Sri Lanka's economic recovery, I think the international community is trying to reach out to Sri Lanka. Simply because of the fact that we are right now an attractive, investable country, and Sri Lankan currency is one of the best performing currencies in the world right now. And apart from that, I think we've had about 16 bilaterals and 4 panels. We've had a lot of discussion on how we'd be able to bring in private sector participation into Sri Lanka. And I think we've made a lot of leeway. So I think good things are yet to come.
And now we're going to talk about the major step in terms of the agreements reached to stabilize the economy announced just yesterday. So an agreement with creditor nations to restructure about $10 billion in bilateral debt. The agreements will be presented in Parliament next week. Will this be enough to restore Sri Lanka, and how committed is Sri Lanka to these agreements?
I think we have to understand that Sri Lanka has been to the IMF close to 16, 17 times, and we've never really completed that restructure program, nor have we followed up with the IMF's program. But this is one of the first, and this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, where we've actually taken reforms that lead to stable economic policy, and where we are able to maintain fiscal sustainability. Because realistically, all this while, Sri Lanka was trying to be a populous state when we are not. We did not have enough revenues being generated by the state-owned enterprises. We did not have, just to give you a bit of perspective, we're a population of 22 million people. We only need 400,000 government servants, but we have 1.5 million. And all that is being paid for by the taxpayers. So, we needed to isolate politics from our fiscal policies. Okay. And that's exactly what we did. And this debt restructuring, especially, I think about, if I'm not mistaken, $4.2 billion with China.
Yes, that's
and
right.
about roughly $5.8 billion with the Paris Club and other creditors. To be very honest, I think the fact that we were able to achieve this is simply because of the creditors' confidence on Sri Lanka's pathway to recovery. Mm-hmm. And we would not have been able to do that if it wasn't for all our fiscal.
But at the same time, investments from China are continuing to pour in, including a multi-billion-dollar oil project just last year, and with China's Belt and Road Initiative. Some observers say this could pose a debt trap. Do you agree? I mean, and you coming here to the World Economic Forum to try to get more investments, would that lead to even more debt?
See, I'm of the view at the end of the day, when there is monetary benefit that is coming to the country in terms of a loan or in terms of grant assistance, whatever it is, due diligence must be done. There needs to be transparency. There needs to be accountability. And we, as Sri Lankans, do not want to get involved in geopolitics. We are the center of it. But right now, I think it's high time we start focusing on ourselves as a country as opposed to, pitting one against another.
At 28, you are the youngest cabinet minister ever to be elected in Sri Lanka last year. And with the presidential election coming soon, what kind of different perspective do you offer to this term of government?
When I was given this portfolio, which is the Water Supply and Estate Infrastructure Ministry, it's something of national importance. And I must say that I represent a marginalized community. But when I did take over the portfolio, I made sure that we wanted to become sustainable, because at the end of the day, it's trickle-down economics. I figured out that if we are able to, actually just to give you a bit of perspective, this Estate Infrastructure Ministry is to cater to 10 districts, a population of 1 million marginalized upcountry Tamils. And they get a budget of 3 billion rupees a year. The Water Board was making a loss of 2.8 billion rupees a year. And according to me, if I was able to make it a profitable institution, then why can't that money be used for the benefit of marginalized communities, not just mine, but also the indigenous communities in Sri Lanka? And that's exactly what we did. I mean, last year, our losses at the Water Board, which is the state-owned enterprise, was at 2.8 billion rupees a year. And today, we received our financial report. We are making a profit of 5.2 billion rupees a year. So I've done my due diligence as far as, setting the institution straight goes. And apart from that, we've also worked on providing land ownership to this marginalized community. And in any healthy economy, to reintegrate a community that has been deprived of their civic rights and have undergone historical injustices, rights to ownership of land is the first step. And also, I think as far as the presidential election goes, I think, for a person being the current president who stepped up when no one else did, I think he's looking to secure a second term, and we're looking forward to the second phase, which is growth.
Looking forward to that presidential election in mid-October, possibly called before that. Thank you so much, Mr. Jeevan. That's all the time we have today. Thank you so much. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Soo Hui. And that was CNA's Tan Soo Hui in conversation with Sri Lanka's Water Supply and Estate and Infrastructure Development Minister.